Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in today's video, sponsored by the makers of Call of Dragons, I want to talk very briefly about the future of the game, the way that I think this kingdom builder is headed, and also, while we're here, we're going to talk about the Black Friday blowout, because, hey, happy Thanksgiving, everybody! I can't believe we're here at Thanksgiving time again, and I mean, there's a lot that I'm thankful for, but first, let's just talk about the bundles here really quickly, and as a quick reminder, two things I'll say. First of all, if you are spending in a mobile game, consider your life priorities. I used to say this in like all my videos, and then I just sort of like forgot to keep saying it, but things like having an emergency fund, saving for retirement, prioritizing your family, those are incredibly valuable ways to spend money. And if you have fun money to spend, boy, oh boy, this is a great time to spend it in Call of Dragons because there is another payback event. We just had one, and here's another one. You get a bunch of extra stuff for having spent. So I personally will do this, and there's also this Black Friday blowout bundle, which, by the way, is giving these universal legendary hero tokens. I think it's very clear why these are super valuable, but in case it wasn't, you can use these for future generations of heroes. So when Gen 4 shows up, which is going to be soon, yeah, I'm going to use these universal tokens, and that's going to be awesome. So let's go and check out what is actually in this bundle, and we'll buy through a few tiers. At the $5 tier, we're getting 2 legendary hero tokens, which, by the way, this bundle has to be better than the great value bundle over here, which gives you, G3 hero tokens. So, I mean, yeah, it's better because you're getting the universal tokens. That in of itself is incredibly valuable. So I'm going to buy these using the dragon tickets that I got just now. I bought them on the Farlight store. I'll have a link in the description. It's an official store for the game, and you get some dragon coins on top of your ticket. So let me explain. You basically pay in advance for these little tickets that you exchange for an equally valued bundle. And on top of that, you get about 10% more value typically in the form of these coins. So I could buy this bundle with coins if I wanted to. So it's about 10% extra value in the form of in-game stuff. And that in-game stuff is in this currency form you can use to go and buy bundles. Anyways, I'm going to exchange this ticket 1 for 1. Bada boom. At the $10 tier, you can see here there's 3 of these legendary hero tokens, some speeds, and some resources. We're going to snap that off, confirm it. The $20 tier, we've got 5 of these tokens, speeds, and resources. I'm in. Let's go. That does give us a bunch of the tiered rewards over here. And in addition, remember that your daily deal will count toward this. I think I already bought my daily deal before this showed up, but whatever, it is what it is. Also, there's a wheel right now. Man, lucky spin. What a great time to do a lucky spin. So anyways, I'll get a couple thousand gems from that daily deal, but I do need to get more. If I wanted, I could do the $50 bundle. That will definitely put me over 12,000 gems over here. I mean, what else could I do? I got a $50 bundle over here. Which one is better? I mean, they're doing kind of different things here, but if we get just like a quick look at the speed ups here, we're looking at 110 hours plus what do we got over here? Another 40 hours, so like 150 hours of speeds compared to this over here. I mean, this is about the same, but then we get these legendary tokens on top. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing this off the top of my head, which is really not the way to do this, but I mean, I think this is the bundle to go for here, so I'm just going to do it. The $50 bundle, speeds, the heads. Yeah. Just snap it off. Easy peasy. We got all these goodies too. And there it is. The Black Friday payback completed. But the reason you probably clicked into this video 4 minutes in, well, if you're subscribed to the channel, you know I always use timestamps, is I wanted to talk about the direction the game is headed in. And a part of the motivation for this was that I was in Discord and there was an interesting conversation that went down. And I sort of realized that I have some unique perspective into the direction this game will go, because this is not my first city building war game. In fact, I've now been playing Rise of Kingdoms for 6 years, and the patterns we're seeing here are exactly the same to what we saw in Rise of Kingdoms, and let me explain. There's a couple things that happened when Rise of Kingdoms entered into the new world of having KVKs, much like you see here, where you enter into KVK, you can migrate to any server in the game if you wanted to. Pretty much. They have to be like endgame servers. And there's a bunch of patterns, okay? Let me talk about what those patterns were. When global migration opened up in Rise of Kingdoms, there was an intense amount of concentration of power into a small number of kingdoms. Those kingdoms and their continued existence was based purely off of wins and losses. And eventually, they were just collecting fighters because they were the biggest and the baddest. But at some point, people realized those kingdoms weren't actually taking real fights, and the fighters all left. This is true in Call of Dragons and will happen here too, where the strongest kingdoms in the game are still too focused on winning and not focused enough on setting up the hardest fight possible that is also winnable for themselves. This is what the best kingdoms in Rise of Kingdoms do, is they hunt those wins, but they also hunt for real fights. And there's a reason why I think in this game that hasn't happened yet. And the same was true for Rise of Kingdoms, sort of. And I'll explain. In this game, before you get to Season of Strife, before you can do sort of global migration, bringing in candidates from all over the game, you are fighting for your survival. You fight for your survival in a home kingdom, and you fight for your survival in the subsequent seasons. And players can migrate, last I checked, at least when I did this the first time around, to other kingdoms that are in a season with you, right? So this Season 1, Season 2 area, there's a lot that goes down, okay? And survival is key. And when this is your world, and that was the case for everyone playing this game, for like the first year the game was out, making sure you win is critical. And there's two types of seasons you take. There's seasons where there are opponents that are super powerful. You need to punch your hardest. You need to have saved up resources. You need to be ready to go all out and have accumulated stuff. And there are seasons where you prepare. Okay. And so depending on who you're up against, you're either up against a worthy opponent and you create a great fight that season, or you're not. It's not a big fight. There's no big names there, and you take an easier season. Okay. And that is what you had to do if you wanted to survive, because when you got up against a group that was going to threaten your existence, you had to have your maximum punching strength. So people have wrongfully, in my opinion, accused BDO when I say, that in the end game, top tier kingdoms are supposed to take these big fights. They point to these seasons that we had, specifically one season that we had before we got to that state of the game. And they're like, well, you took an easy season over a year ago. And it's like, yeah, dude, the game state was different, bro. In a world in which you can only migrate in the people around you and you have to fight who you're up against, it's a completely different world. The way the matchmaking works now, the way these seasons of Strife work, the way that global migration works, it's a totally different ballgame. So what I'm trying to say, maybe not so elegantly, as I record this late at night, is that the direction the game will head is that the current big kingdoms will need to either actually deliver real fights, or the real fighters will start to go other places and the real long-lasting kingdoms will emerge. There are several ingredients that will be critical to that beyond actually being a fighter kingdom. And one of those elements is actually still a big concern for a lot of players in this game, and it's accountability. Weirdly enough, players of this game are terrified of a dead troop accountability. And it's funny because I don't think I have particularly high dead troop count. But now that bastions are a mechanic in this game, it is absolutely critical that players send their troops into those bastions to lose them. And it's funny because we wanted to go in the direction of BDO of requiring dead troops. I don't have that many, in my opinion. I should go get more. I had, I think, a pretty high amount in this last season relative to the amount of dead troop opportunity we had. But that almost entirely came from basically rallying cities and turning on that skill. I can't remember the name now where you take dead troops. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that dead troops will be a healthy requirement of every kingdom at some point in this game. The only reason it isn't is because there's enough kingdoms that tolerate not having that, such that all the players are like, well, why would I migrate to a kingdom that has a dead troop requirement? None of the other kingdoms have it. So at some point, one of the top tier kingdoms is actually going to get, how do I want to say this in a politically correct way? Will actually have the courage of leadership to say, every single player will contribute a certain amount of dead troops based on their power, or they can't stay here. And the reason why every single player should want that is because you want to know that everyone else on your team is going to commit the same way you will. And a part of the reason that BDO is in some ways a unusually, I think, alarming opponent to fight is because we will send it, bro. We will send it. You want to lose troops? We do, right? We will send it, whether it's rallying or garrisoning. We will kill off our troops. We will throw down if the strategic objective is there. And that's what we're committing to. We're committed. We will go for it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that eventually there will be a requirement in this game upheld by players in the top kingdoms in the game to contribute minimum amounts of dead troops based on your power. It's an inevitability, but the fact that people are so allergic to it now is so fascinating and sort of points to a couple things. First of all, obviously in this game, you want to have a lot of troops because it increases your free healing. And so there's a weird push-pull here that is sort of fighting that direction that needs to happen for healthy communities and kingdoms. Because look, like people should want to be in a kingdom that requires dead troops because then you know everybody is committing. Imagine the opposite world where nobody commits any troops to passes, nobody commits any troops to bastions. You're just going to lose, right? So if committing troops is a requirement for victory, how unfair is it if everybody isn't contributing? Look, it's an unpopular take, okay? And a year from now, we'll point back to this video and be like, I told you so. Because in Rise of Kingdoms, they would laugh you out of the room if you said you were running a top tier kingdom in this game without a dead troop requirement. It is a absolute joke to a Rise of Kingdoms player, okay? Even your casual players will be like, wow, that's crazy. Y'all are nuts. They think you're lunatics how casual you are. Okay, so what I'm driving at here is there will be an accountability elevation, and then and only then will these top tier kingdoms that are also seeking out tough fights really emerge. And the third ingredient, okay, accountability for performance, including dead troops, okay, seeking hard fights. Then lastly is going to be really strong leadership that understands what's actually happening. And I can't comment really to other alliances in this regard. I genuinely don't pay much attention to the sort of drama and the other kingdoms in this game and what they're up to. But I thought it was really interesting that a lot of people that don't normally agree with me were like, in the official Discord, they were like, yeah, actually, it is weird that the big kingdoms in this game, maybe they could try to take harder fights. I don't know. I actually thought it was really interesting. The people that normally are like, I disagree with Chisgule were like, no, we're in alignment here. So, look, you don't have to like my opinion, but we can just look to the patterns in Rise of Kingdoms, and this game is following those patterns already. And I pointed to that before, and I'll point to it again now very formally in a video that I think those things are coming. Okay. That doesn't mean they have to be there now. I mean, we wanted to have a dead troop requirement and we had to remove it because when your options are to migrate to a kingdom that has a dead troop requirement or a kingdom that doesn't, a lot of people look at that and they freak out. I almost feel like we should have doubled down on the dead troop requirement, but I'm not the guy doing the recruiting, so I wasn't going to be a complainer. And I am happy with our migration in. The other thing that I think is going to be really critical, by the way, for community growth in this game and the formation of these sort of super kingdoms, which is an inevitability, is that you really need to be able to manage to a decimal point of a very meaningful level of precision is what I'm trying to say, for your migration. Okay. And I keep zooming out because I want to go to the world map and show you migration. But the point I'm making here is that in Rise of Kingdoms, based on the way power works and the power restrictions work, I can tell you exactly with zero hesitation at all how much we can migrate into a kingdom. I can tell you exactly what we can get. And you can do that here using the new functions that are sort of available. I haven't ever done this myself though, so I can't really speak to it in detail, where you sort of simulate how full your server would be with a migration. But there's a lot more control in the player's hands in Rise of Kingdoms, just based on the way that those systems actually work. And I think that is going to be really important to be able to like really, really clearly define like how you get people into the kingdom. And I think, you know, we have some really good systems that have come a long way already for this game. But purely based off the way the system is designed, I don't know that you can predict in the same way that you could in Rise of Kingdoms. Now, that said, you know, you can simulate what the migration would be. So, you know, that's not a criticism of how it's done in this game. It's just a difference in the way that they're done. All right. So those are the elements that are going to dictate the future for this game and how these super kingdoms are formed. Actually, having those elements, the leadership, taking the tough fights, setting the standards for the dead troops, being able to migrate and really detailed level manage your communities is really key. And the other piece of the puzzle, I suppose, for like managing your communities is like, you know, what do you do with people that are in your home kingdom that are not contributors to the kingdom? That is a huge question mark. And I almost feel like, you know, look, the way they solved this in Rise of Kingdoms is with a KVK registration. I would bet you that at some point we might get a KVK registration or equivalent that lets you pick person by person who is or is not a part of that matchmaking power. And matchmaking, you know, rating or however that's done, right? I think that would be a reasonable add. And maybe they, I don't know, yeah, the High King registers the realm for a season of scenario. But I think the High King registers the alliances, specific alliances could be an interesting one. The players would be a real pain. Like, it's a real pain, but you can get very precise. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. The late night ravings and rantings of a experienced veteran in the genre who actually knows exactly what he's talking about, but maybe not conveyed in the best way. I don't know. You let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I am looking forward to doing a podcast at some point with Boss Nasty to talk about some of this stuff and any other topics he's kind of come up with. He reached out to me and presented some cool ideas, and I'm into it. So we'll have a conversation more in depth. So be on the lookout for that. Until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom. Take care, everybody.